How to optimize WordPress robots.txt file for SEO. This is a sample site that I'm showing you what a robots.txt file may look like if you've never created one. This is the default for user agent, asterisk means all user agents, so to speak, okay? Now, logging into the dashboard, looking at settings, looking at reading here. If this website was a test site that you're still working on, so it's not live on internet, let me hit Save Changes just to show you what happens when I check that. And now, this setting does that. So you would never have this checked if you want your site to be found in Google, okay? So now if you end up seeing something like this, you may think, you know what, I want to have more control of what search engines can access on my site. Crawling, that's what they do. When they fetch your URL, they crawl it. So now, through your dashboard, you can't create robots.txt file for your WordPress site. It's just a text file, but you have to log into your web hosting, press on File Manager, and I actually have one here created, so I'm going to delete that for you and take you step by step and show you how to create one. You can just create a file, new file, call it robots.txt. Let's create the file. Right click, press on edit. It's just going to be an empty file. Now what goes in here? What can you place in here? You can visit my blog, public assets section, and find sample robots.txt for WordPress. Press on that folder and download it. It's a zip folder whereby I've actually created sample directives for most typical WordPress sites. So if I was to extract the contents of that zip folder and look within it, there is a file called robots.txt. Keep in mind, you could have easily created robots.txt file, empty one, using your Windows new file, create a new text document and call it robots.txt. Right? It's that simple. So let me go and open this particular sample file. You can open it using Notepad. I'm going to select the Dreamweaver that I have because I think it's much easier for me to show you. Now I have some warning messages here. They are placed in a comment, so that means I can actually leave this in that file if I want, because what you place after the hashtag is a comment. If you're communicating with other web developers or webmasters, it could be the case for your setup, then you may like to perhaps leave comments in there so others can understand, okay? So here I'm saying, you know what, user agent Googlebot, because I can do that and you can too. If you're using WooCommerce, for example, you can delete that line. If not, you can safely use that directive as well by just removing the comments. Okay, I created this usually for search results page because they start with a question mark. But you can say, you know what, I want to have the most typical safe user directives for my WordPress site. So you can use these directives, okay? Let me remove that as well, just to simplify things. Here we can use allow directive, whereby Googlebot does in fact understand and use and obey. Here I've created a couple of lines for file types JS or .css. For JavaScript files and for CSS files, because at times Googlebot sometimes has issues seeing JavaScript files or CSS files. So we are basically covering that, making sure that Google can see files with JS extension and CSS extension. Here I've commented different various user agents that Googlebot uses, as in Google as a company uses. It could be for mobile. You may like to utilize that by uncommenting. So when you remove the hash, that's uncommented now, so you can use it. You may say, you know what, Googlebot mobile, I want to disallow certain parts of my website. So here, if Yoast is popular plugin, if you're using that, the typical naming convention is post-sitemap.xml. Or you may have different custom categories and so on, custom post types, or let's say WooCommerce, or your theme may generate different folder structure, and if you're using different plugins, they may end up creating sitemaps specifically for those portions of your WordPress site. If that's the case, you can simply use it along those lines. I'm going to briefly touch at base as far as what's going on here. These are the typical directives. But let's imagine this scenario. Let's imagine you say, you know what, disallow, let's say you have a private folder. You don't want Google to request an access, it's in Chrome. Then you can say disallow, and give the folder name you don't want Google to crawl. But let's imagine this scenario then. You say, you know what, in that private folder, I have a file named important.php, .html, whichever file extension you're using for your permalinks, or it could be just that file name important, but you want Google to allow that, so you can use it along those lines. Okay, so disallow and allow means that. There are others, as far as, let's say, disallow : private to / an asterisk. Asterisk covers everything. Okay, so think it like that. This user agent till the next user agent directive, it's for Googlebot. I could have easily said, copy all this, paste it below, and say, you know what, how about Googlebot mobile? And I can specify the directives that comes after that user agent line is designed to guide this user agent. It's in crawling search bot. So you can use robots.txt file for your WordPress site along those lines. Now you have to be very thoughtful when you're using this file, because most website owners who use WordPress or any other type of content management system, they use this file, they end up seeing their parts of their website shown in Google Index. That's because although Google has to obey the directives within this file, if there are links pointing to those private files on your WordPress site, if there are links pointing to them, then Google may follow those links and still access those directives. I'm going to show you a method to remedy that as well. Now, what is very important on this file also is the location for your sitemap. XML sitemap. Simply change your domain URL to match. Yoast uses post, but you may use plugins for your sitemap. If that's the case, simply say sitemap : and the URL for your sitemap. Because now Google, when it comes, it's going to request robots.txt file first, see what it can do and what it is not allowed to do, obey the rules, and go through each line to see what else is there till the end. And when it comes across this line, it's going to say, okay, well, let me go and see that sitemap. I'll show you what a sitemap looks like. That's an XML sitemap. Now at that stage, Google came and looked at the sitemap URL. Now it's looking at this to see, okay, when was it last updated? Does it match my records? Do I have to recrawl those pages? Because if it's not updated and it's already aware, as in cached it in its database, it's going to save resources, so it's not going to go and crawl it again. But what if there was some changes? Then it's going to say, okay, let me skip the ones that has not changed and let me go and look at the ones that has changed, as in different to my timestamps. So as you can see, the importance of these two files, because it just makes everything easy for Google, as well as your WordPress site, staying always up to date with Google Index, so to speak, okay? So now we understand what's going on, and you make those changes. You can upload that robots.txt file. You can upload it if you want, or you created one, right click, edit, and once you make the modifications, copy all that stuff, all the directives, paste it live online, save the changes. Let's go and request robots.txt, and everything's going to be reflected live online. Now your WordPress site is much better equipped, okay? I'll actually restore my default and also show you what I've done, that you may like to perhaps take a look at it to see what else you can do, okay? You copy all that, Control C, and go back to my web host, Control A, delete all, paste my own robots.txt file. Remember, this is my own, okay? Now, before we close up, I'd like to show you a method whereby you can properly control indexation of Google. I've logged into my dashboard, press on Appearance, press on Editor. Here I need to find header.php file. Where is it? Where is it? It's here, header.php. Now, depending on the theme that you're using, you may actually not have that option. If that's the case, log into your web hosting manager, press on File Manager, then press on WP Content, find your themes folder, browse into it. If you're using child theme, it's smart to dive in there to see if there's a file called header.php. If there isn't, browse back into the themes folder and look into the parent theme. I'm using RankYa theme. Here I have header.php file. Let me right click, press on Edit. It is smart to press Ctrl A, grab all, Ctrl C to copy, and before you make any modifications, always have a backup. Let's just leave it a text file because it makes no difference. Now, before I make changes to that file, I have a backup, because let's imagine this scenario. Let's, as an example, I'm going to crash the site, so just to show you, let's just make this huge silly change here. Let's break the code, save changes, go and request my blog. It's gone. It has to be gone. It's broken. Now let me go back to my web hosting, press on header.php, right click, edit, Ctrl A, delete all, everything is gone, and select all, copy and paste everything in there, save changes, and voila, I have my site back online, ready to go for more action. Now I've just shown you a method whereby it is absolutely critical before you use the methods I'm going to show you in a minute, right? Simply locate. Okay, there is still something different here because let's go back to header.php. This is my local copy. Let me Control A, Control C, and do the right thing properly, because I've just seen a new line there that I wasn't happy with. Okay, so here we just locate the head portion, and I encourage you to find the end of the head portion. That's the header. That is the end of it. So once you locate that part, the end of it, it's much better to blurt that out there. Now you have to keep in mind if you're in PHP mode or normal HTML mode. Okay, let's say we are in normal HTML mode at this stage. Some themes may blurt different things out, but you now know how to back up first. So let's create a PHP code block, and within it, let's say if is page as an example, or you can say if is single as an example. Okay, let's imagine a single. It's a blog post. Let's just do this. If is single. Let me put those brackets and all that stuff precisely. Let's do this now. If is single. Let's imagine we have a blog post. I'll show you that as well so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's look at some sample blog posts. There's two methods you can control this now, right? Let me press on this blog post. Let me press on edit, or I can hover over to see the post ID down the bottom of this screen now. Post ID 4011. It's post ID 4011. If is single, post with an ID. Let me echo out let me copy this here so it's quicker, so this video doesn't go for 10 hours, right? Let me close that, and let me actually remove the mobile and say, you know what, Googlebot only, Google web search crawler. Echo out this. So, okay, let's say no index for that particular post ID, right? Let me hit save changes. Let me go view that page. Let me press on Ctrl U on my keyboard to see the source code. Let me find the end of that head. Now look what happened. It is only on this page, because if I was to go to this URL, do the same thing as in press on Ctrl U on my keyboard to look at the source code and find the end of that head element, you see that directive is not in there. It's because this condition made sure of that. I could have easily deleted the post ID and manually insert the name for that post within those single quotes and save changes and view it. This still will be here. Let me refresh to show you. Still there, as you can see. Okay, so this is how you meant to control indexation, not necessarily through your robots.txt file. Yes, you use this for efficiency for crawling. And if you truly want to make sure that Google does not index certain parts of your WordPress site, then you have to use PHP blocks, conditions, to make sure Google does not access certain parts of your WordPress site. So let me delete those PHP code because that was there for demonstration purposes. Let's save changes. That should be gone now, as in this should be gone now, because that page I want Google to index. But you can control no index as well. Once again, go to public assets section, download this robots.txt sample file, modify it according to your WordPress setup and your requirements, upload it to your web server into public_HTML folder. It has to be in there, and then that's what Google's going to request when it visits your WordPress site. Keep in mind, I actually have private courses for WordPress SEO as well. I thank you very much for learning with me, and I'll talk with you in the next video session.